Hey guys, this is Ryan Denson, also known as the Boston Beer Guy. I hope you're doing well and having an excellent Friday. I want to welcome you on to a very spooky episode of Frosty Boi Fridays, where we'll shotgun a Bud Light and then rate a craft beer. I want to welcome on a very special guest, Neil Kade, who is the founder of Gilded Skull. Neil, thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're going to be reviewing the very recently released Light of My Eyes New England Style Double IPA. Awesome can design, goes fitting with the Halloween. Neil, tell me a little bit more about Gilded Skull.
I mean, Gilded Skull is just kind of my passion project, really. I'm a scientist, kind of that's my day job, but I've been brewing for years and years. I've always wanted to brew. I've had some things thrown at me the last few years that have made reassessment of life and priorities kind of happen, and I just Gilded Skull has kind of fallen out of that in the last 6 to 8 months, and I think people have definitely received us well and have been super supportive, and I appreciate all of you guys out there and all of you for that. But that's really Gilded Skull.
Awesome. I think that's a great sort of and again, everyone here is always supporting these small local breweries. So I'm so happy to have you on, and we're going to get to a bunch of stuff today, but first we have to do the thing that I always do, and it's shotgunning a Bud Light. So I'm going to go do that now, and then we'll get into the review. So Neil, you mentioned you've never shotgunned a Bud Light, or have you just not done it in the past for a while?
Oh no, dude, I shotgunned a lot of Bud Lights, but you don't want to watch me vomit right now, so I'm gonna let you do it. I'm gonna watch you do it, so people don't get they don't want to see that.
Awesome. Well, cheers, and we'll get to it soon. Ooh.
That's a pretty good job there. That was like down in like 3 seconds. So
it's one of those things where I started this review with that in mind. I think it'd be funny, and I've just been getting quicker and quicker and quicker at it. So it's been fun. There's a little bit at the bottom, like a very tiny bit, but
that's okay, man. That was a good job.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Well, let's start getting into this beer. Obviously, we're going to pour this. So again, Light of My Eyes New England Style Double IPA, coming in at 8% ABV. Awesome can work design. I really like it. It's got that sort of, again, spooky sort of theme to it, which is awesome. So we're going to crack this open, and let's chat about it.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to Marco Mazzoni for doing that label, by the way.
Sorry, who was that?
Marco Mazzoni is the artist who did that label, so big shout out to him.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess that kind of jumps me into my first question. And whenever I talk to a brewer, I always ask them, so, you're thinking about a beer you want to brew. You're not 100% sure what it is, but then you get your recipe all set and going. Do you keep label art, name, can art in the back of your mind when you're creating a recipe and actually brewing the beer, or does that come later on?
Oh, no. A lot of these have been kind of in the kind of the queue for a long time. They're brands that I've been developing in my mind as as far back as when I was home brewing. But so the idea for the branding was always there. When I actually got the opportunity to start having commercial kind of thoughts and how it was going to play out and how it was going to progress and develop, then I started looking for artists that could support those brand ideas, and there's so many great artists out there, and I've always been trying to shoot above my weight when it comes to finding artists for these labels, and I've been really lucky that people have been willing to work with me. Yeah. People like Marco Mazzoni. Gilded Skull is in my mind, it's 50% the beer and it's 50% an artistic kind of outlet for me. It's like an art project, so I really enjoy kind of branding and working with these artists. So big shout out to all my label artists. I appreciate you guys.
Of course. Awesome. And so I know we had talked a little bit back and forth. So, what sort of beers do you like to brew? I know everyone sort of has their, I love Trillium loves their IPAs, their porters, their sours. Treehouse loves their, IPAs, their porters as well. A lot of breweries have their own niche stuff. So what's your niche? What do you love to brew?
So I am a protein biochemist. That's my day job, and I'm a microbiologist. So I like yeast and I like bacteria. So while you guys are drinking these right now, if Gilded Skull not if, when Gilded Skull is a physical brewery, you're going to be getting a lot of oak fermented stuff. It's all going to be there's going to be a big emphasis on mixed culture, oak fermented, open fermentation, spontaneous fermentation. That is what I love to do. That's my passion, and that's what I actually do the best. So when the brewery is actually a thing, you're going to get a lot of that, and you're going to get this.
Have you ever heard of Amory's Tomb that does a lot of farmhouse style? Yeah, those guys are great too. And I feel like you kind of have that sort of understanding and you like to do the yeast, because I know that the guy who runs Amory's Tomb is also someone who likes to play with these sort of wild yeast, the oatiness. Hopefully to have him on down the line, but I kind of feel like you have sort of the same sort of mantra, sort of the same, vision when it comes to your beers.
Yeah, no, I'm a Franco-Belgian, very, very traditional Saison kind of guy. That's the stuff I really like to brew. It's the stuff I really like to drink, aside from also big lager guy. So if I'm reaching for a beer, usually it's one of those types of things. But when I'm brewing something that is not like a commercial IPA, I'm brewing a mixed culture Saison.
Okay. So I guess obviously you had this sort of passion for the microbiology to kind of getting in with the yeast. What sort of made you decide, okay, you know what, I'm going to start brewing beer? And so where did that kind of start? And then how did you get to where you are now?
You're talking like the very beginning?
Like when you were sitting down there, like before you even started homebrewing, like what sort of ticked in your brain saying like, maybe I should start homebrewing beer? Like what kind of got into the homebrewing?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I think just like a lot of people, back in like 2011, 2012, I got a Mr. Beer kit like for Christmas from my partner at the time, and that's how I got into it. And I was like, this is basically like doing science. I do this stuff every day, and I love to cook. So, and I love to drink beer. I mean, who doesn't like to drink beer? So that's kind of where it started, and it just spiraled. And then when I met my current wife, she was like, I've always wanted to homebrew. And I'm like, I homebrew. And then we just went nuts.
That's awesome.
And I was new to New England, and she introduced me to Allagash, and then it was just downhill from there.
I gotcha. Kind of like every single person who starts. I started, I started with a company called Climbing Vines in upstate New York, actually coming on the show soon. They were my first love of craft beer. They really taught me and they brought me into the whole culture. And then I got home, and for Christmas I got a beer kit and I started, and I just have never looked back. So that's awesome. So where'd you come up with the name Gilded Skull? Is meaning behind that, or just sort of a fun name you played with?
So the idea was always to be like a very art-focused, music-focused, and beer-focused, obviously, high-level beer-focused brewery. Big music fan, I'm a big metal fan, so I wanted it to be kind of around those types of things. And I was working with a lawyer trying to figure out, what's open. Well, there are 8,500 breweries in the country. There's like very little space to operate. So I had like a list of 20 names that I was shot down. So I was walking through downtown Portland around Halloween, and there was like a storefront that's full of decorations, and it had a bunch of gilded golden skulls in the window, and my friends and I just looked at each other and were like, golden skull, gilded skull, that's it, screw it, that's it. And that's how it happened.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. So you were talking a little bit about the tap room or even the brewery. You hinted at it a bit. Is that something that we can expect in the next year, 2 years, 6 months? What's sort of the progression of that, if you can talk about that?
Yeah, so that's in the works. So I think like a lot of people, I mean, COVID is like throwing a wrench in most everything that I think anybody's doing right now. So that is really affecting what I'm able to do and how I'm pursuing things. Right before everything happened, I was looking at locations for sure.
Where
right now
do you have?
Yeah, I don't want to throw too many towns out there right now because I don't want to get anybody too excited, and I also don't want towns that don't realize I was looking there to know that I'm looking there quite yet.
I totally get that.
Far along.
The greater Boston area.
Yeah, definitely the greater Boston area. Yeah, towns that don't currently have breweries, and it won't matter anyway because there are no towns in Boston that have breweries like I'm planning to open.
No, you got a very rusty market.
Nobody's mashing in oak, and I plan to do a lot of stuff in it. So nobody has that. So if I can figure that out, the town is not going to matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, COVID, if COVID behaves and things go hopefully as we're all hoping that they're going to go soon, I'm going to hopefully be able to make more progress with that. And I'm trying very hard to lure some other people that we all are probably familiar with into some situation that could be like a super brewery kind of vibe. I don't think it's a very long shot, but we're trying to do some things, and we're going to see how that shakes out. So
Interesting.
I'm
So
teaming and
looks like it's kind of like when you go to a big college and you are sort of a college, you have like a bunch of different like sort of like dorms all in one together, or sort of like maybe like a collaborative brewery where you have three different brewers brewing and they all come together. That's like if you get like a Taco Bell and a KFC mixed with the McDonald's all one place, you get the best of both worlds. That would be cool. It's a cool idea. I like that.
You kind of got it.
Yeah, I gotcha.
We're trying to figure out how to make that work in a legal way and in an actual physical way, but nobody's doing that either. It would be a very cool thing.
I love it. Hey, so listen, when you're you brewed a bunch of beers. You were talking about how you love the sort of the wild, brewing in oak. What's your favorite beer that you've ever brewed?
Favorite beer I ever brewed?
Yeah.
So I brew a lot of very small field beer, for lack of a better sense, petite saison. So a lot of them are 3 or below in ABV. So one of my favorites was like recently I brewed it was a 2.7%, 100% mixed culture sunflower seed saison. It was bottle conditioned with sunflower honey. That's probably one of my favorites. I just recently bottled a 4% dandelion rhubarb saison from this past spring, 5 months in the steel. That one is one of my favorites. And if you guys know me and we're friends, hit me up and I'll give you a bottle. Friends.
Yes.
Yeah. So those are a couple of my favorites. I tend to kind of like a lot of people. I tend to like what's like in my glass.
Yeah.
At the time, but yeah, a couple of those are some of my favorites. Done a bunch of like big barrel aged Russian Imperial stouts that I'm pretty fond of.
Good. No, yeah, you have a wide array of beers, which is awesome, and I do obviously appreciate that because as much as I like IPAs, I like to try new things and try a bunch of other stuff too. So it's cool to have someone who's so dedicated to just do kind of like funky little recipes and just come out with like incredible beers. So I know that obviously I saw the Instagram post where you, Remnant, as well as Wandering Soul were all kind of together brewing a bit. So I know collaborations are coming down the line in terms of just everybody collaborates with everybody. But if you're not drinking your own beers, what is sort of your favorite brewery that you're drinking now, or what is one of your favorite places to go to drink beer?
My favorite brewery in the country to go drink beer at is Jester King. By far.
And where is it located?
So it's in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
So anybody who knows my backstory knows that I've been kind of dealing with some illness the last couple of years. So before all of that, my wife and I used to be big beer tourists. So we would go all over the place. And every summer, every spring, once or twice in a year, we would go to Jester King just for a day trip.
Yeah.
Just because we both love it. There's something magical about that brewery and actually having the beer in that space.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite place to drink beer.
What about favorite sort of like New England beer that you like? Like let's say you go to a liquor store, you see, Remnant, you got Wandering Soul. I mean, obviously Trillium's not there, but imagine Trillium being there, Treehouse being there, Allagash, all these places in New England. Yeah. Do you have a kind of go-to, your favorite place?
Yeah, so I consider New England. I don't know if everybody's going to consider New England, but my favorite regional brewery is OEC.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of OEC. Whenever I can find like their Cool Ship Lager when it drops, I'll go buy like a case if there's no limits on it. And a lot of the stuff that they're doing out there, very similar to sort of the vibes that I would be doing if I had the choice for a physical brewery. They're very experimental and they do some really cool mixed culture stuff and wild stuff, spontaneous stuff.
Awesome.
So I really love them. And I'm always going to shout out my boy Matt at Wandering Soul. I always have Wandering Soul in my refrigerator. Anytime he's going to drop like being a lager, I'm drinking that. Yeah, I mean, there's too much good beer here, and that's the problem. And I can't keep up, so I can't drink it.
I can't drink that much beer either, and I love it. Again, I was shouting out to Matt over Wandering Soul. I loved Melody Maker. I can't wait to get my paws on his brand new IPA that he's coming out with. But yeah, so that's awesome. So let's kind of get into this beer because we've talked a lot about Gilded Skull and your kind of background, but now I want to get into more about this beer. So tell me a little bit more about what's going on, and then we'll drink a little bit, we'll rate it, but what's kind of going on here? What hops are you brewing with, process wise?
Yeah, so in terms of hops, this is pretty simple. So this is 100% Mosaic and Citra hopped double IPA. You mentioned it's 8%. I tend to do things a little bit different when it comes to my grists than a lot of breweries do. I tend to try to build body like I would in a mixed culture beer that's going to dry out with a lot of protein-rich adjuncts. And everybody knows about oats and IPAs. You got your oat milk IPAs and stuff. There's plenty of oats in here, but there's a lot of other things in here that a lot of other IPA breweries are not using in terms of grain, just to build body. And then I use a really hefty Whirlpool and dry hop additions, especially for somebody that's contract brewing. I'm making $0 on my beer because I'm using a lot of hops, and it's not cheap to use hops for anybody out there that brews beer. They're very expensive.
Very expensive.
And my grists are a little more expensive too. So I'm not doing this to be rich. I'm doing this because I love to brew beer. I just brew, and I'm trying to make the best beer I can, and slightly different than what other people are doing for New England IPAs, because let's be honest, there's a zillion of them.
Yeah. You can definitely tell that you have the passion. And I mean, it's good that you're not sort of like, oh, I need to get these beers out so I can make a lot of money. It's more of like sort of the hobby of it, and the fact that you want to go produce your fun and interesting beers to the world and kind of get yourself out there. And, down the line, once you start making your actual brewery, the money will come down the line and you'll be able to sort of do this and have more fun with it. So, so I know this is going to be challenging at this point, but I want you to rate this beer 1 through 10 as someone who is like myself, who and sometimes I'll have a brewery's beer beforehand, to sort of understand it. This is a 1 of 1 for myself. This is the only one I have. I just cracked it. So imagine, yourself kind of in my shoes as yourself. What would you rate this beer 1 out of 10?
Yeah, so that's impossible. It's impossible for me. I can't rate my own beer. Generally, I don't like my own beer, and I don't think I would be a good brewer if I did. I'm constantly critiquing my beer and constantly drinking and tasting it to try to figure out how to make it better. So whenever anybody asks me how I feel about my beer, my answer to that is, how do you feel about it? Because when I rate my beer, it's an NA. It's not applicable. What I care about is how you guys feel.
I totally get it. Well, why don't I do this? Again, this is a 1 of 1 for me. I only have one of these, and I've just opened it, and I got to give you kudos, man. As someone who doesn't brew IPAs, this is awesome. I really do like this. Again, someone myself who I've had on tons of brewers who have done New England style IPAs, regular IPAs, and we've done some really high ratings. This is kind of creeping up there in terms of some of my favorite beers that I've had on the show. I really like that you can just kind of dive in and you can smell the Mosaic hops. You can sort of get sort of all the flavors coming in at once. I'm actually going to rate this an 8.4 out of 10. I think you did a great job, man. I think this is a really good beer. As someone who, again, isn't that type of person who likes brewing IPAs, or someone who does a lot of fun stuff. Like I think you did a lot of cool stuff with this beer, and I can taste sort of the funkiness of it as well, which is sort of like your signature. Like you like sort of like using the funky, the wild yeast, and you can definitely taste it in the beer. So that's my rating. Neil, thank you so much for joining the show. Where can people buy this?
Yeah, so you guys can check Craft Collective, which is the distributor. They're constantly updating their location list. You can also check GildedSkullBrewing.com. I have a location finder, and that's updated for every release pretty much daily as things come out, and that'll tell you basically where you can find it near you. But it's going to be all over Massachusetts.
Awesome. Yeah. And again, coming from myself, Boston Beer Guy, I definitely recommend going out. If you see this beer in stores, grab yourself a 4, maybe 2 4-packs, because there's a limited release. They're not going to have a lot of it. And 4-packs. Support your local breweries. Go get 2 4-packs, because this beer is awesome. Neil, thank you so much for coming on the show. Happy Halloween, by the way.
Oh, yes, definitely. Happy Halloween. And shout out to my boys. Shout out to all my boys out there.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, how'd it go? That was fun.